feeling the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be looking at another idol image / persona within the industry, and that is the ice princess image in K-pop. We're going to discuss what exactly the definition of being an ice princess entailed, examples of idols who have held this image and why idols may hold this image, and of course we'll look at the negative aspects of the image like we usually do, but interestingly for this one, we can also look at why it seems to be a trope that is fading away within the industry. So without further ado, let's get started by first looking at what exactly we mean by the ice princess image in K-pop. In various areas of media, the title of ice princess is usually used to describe a beautiful woman who has a sort of distant aura about her, and it's very similar within the K-pop world, but we could ideally break this title down into two parts to help us understand the aspects of it a little better, the icy part and the princess part. The icy aspect of being an ice princess refers to the personality of an ice princess. They might not be the most affectionate or appear very friendly on the surface, but they have perfect control over the way they come across. Rather than showing so much of their emotions, they are much harder to read, and they're more like ice. They can appear tough and cold on the outside. The princess aspect of an ice princess more literally refers to the visuals. Ice princesses are usually very beautiful and have an almost angelic appearance, where they appear like royalty at times. They're very poised, very put together, and there's a sort of elegance about them that makes it feel as though they could literally be a real-life princess. So let's now look at some examples of K-pop idols who may have been labelled as ice princesses. Perhaps you may be thinking of some other ones yourselves just from the description, so if there's any I've missed, please let me know in the comments. FX's Krystal. When I decided to create this video and knew I would have to come up with examples, Krystal is the first idol who came to mind for me. So although people believe Krystal's sister and X-Girls Generation member Jessica may have been the first idol to hold this title, we'll be talking about Krystal today just because she's the first idol who came to mind for me, and I think maybe a lot of other people too. This could be for a few reasons, one of which seems to be her quote cold demeanor. She seemed to always have a very straight face wherever possible, and her expression always seemed cool and calm on the outside. In a way, it's as though her name suited her perfectly. She had this sort of crystal clear ice-like appearance. But aside from this, there was also that sort of serenity to Krystal, which is how she fit both the ice and the princess sides of this image. She was always extremely elegant in the way she presented herself, the way she dressed, etc. She was in multiple campaigns due to her beauty and ability to pull off all sorts of expectations placed upon runway models, rather than just being an idol or singer. In fact, I believe even now, although FX aren't necessarily promoting as a group anymore, Krystal has kind of stepped away from the music industry, but she's still very involved with the fashion industry and regularly attends events such as Fashion Week because she's known for her stylish image. Another example of an ice princess in K-pop also comes to us from SM Entertainment, shocker, and that would be Red Velvet's leader Irene. I think Irene is another idol who gained this title from, yes, of course, her visuals, but also her facial expressions, simple as that sounds. Irene is kind of renowned for having what appears to be quite a reserved look on the outside, so her facial expressions may appear quite blank or even cold and icy at times. But she's also beautiful and elegant in the same way we described Krystal, to a level where she almost just always looks expensive, even when she might not be meaning to, if that makes sense. Like, she is one of those people who could wear a simple plain t-shirt and jeans and make them look catwalk ready. The next example I'm including is because it's one I saw a few people mentioning in some articles I checked out, and that is Twice's Mina. This one surprised me a little bit because although I do understand where people may be coming from with this one, I'm not too sure I see it as much as the other examples we've mentioned so far, but I thought I'd include it anyway, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. If Mina is referred to as an ice princess, I can imagine this again being because of her elegant demeanor. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Mina has a history of ballet training before her career as a K-pop idol and a member of Twice. And if that is the case, ballet is a rather strict dance style, which requires its dancers to take on a very disciplined image and appearance. There's a right and wrong way to do ballet because it's so technical, so this shows within the poise of a ballerina, and this is the sort of vibe and aura that Mina appears to give off. Aside from the fact that she's of course very beautiful idol, as is every idol labeled an ice princess, she seems to give off a vibe of control and gracefulness, which definitely could be why people see her as an ice princess. And last but not least, one more example I wanted to include is the most recent one I could think of personally, and a 4th gen idol, aespa's Winter. There's definitely a debate amongst fans whether or not Winter would be classified as an ice princess, or if this image kind of died out before aespa debuted, but in my opinion, I definitely think Winter was SM's attempt at having another ice princess within another K-pop generation. Because if you've watched any of my idol images and personas videos before, then you'll know very well that SM Entertainment is the label that seems to love having an idol follow a popular image in every group of a generation wherever possible. Aside from the fact her name is literally Winter, which is a dead giveaway, Winter could be classified as an ice princess for, again, all of the reasons we've already mentioned. I'm sorry, I know I sound like a broken record. Winter seems to have mastered a rather blank facial expression, which makes her look cold on the surface and sometimes perhaps a little bit more intimidating, because she has this air of elegance and sort of a regal vibe that makes her look perhaps untouchable, even if that isn't the case. And of course, true to the ice princess image, Winter is also known for her royal-like visual. She has a very elegant face and style, and this can often be seen in the way she presents herself, both on and off stage. Okay, so before we look into the potential issues the K-pop industry has with this image, let's first discuss why an idol may have this image. Unlike some of the other ones we have discussed in the past, where I have said it's likely an idol has this image because a label or fans gave it to them, am I crazy for thinking that a lot of idols perhaps got this image by total accident in the beginning, but once labels realized it could be a thing, then they took it and just ran along with it as if they were in the know from the very beginning? Okay, hear me out. So it's believed that the first example of an ice princess within K-pop is likely EXO's generation member Jessica, like we mentioned before, and it's believed she had this image because she appeared kind of cold at debut. Herself and the members have commented on it too. She was a bit standoffish sometimes, and it appeared this way because of her facial expressions. However, because of the way she carried herself with such elegance and beauty, fans could tell she didn't necessarily act this way to be rude, but it was just part of her elegant image and personality. Thus, the ice princess image was born. Jessica didn't mean for fans to view her this way, and neither did SM Entertainment in the beginning. But once this was something fans picked up on and were using to describe the idols who perhaps weren't as loud or boisterous or naturally appeared approachable as other members of their group, then labels also decided to act as though this was always an image that they wanted a group member to have from the beginning, and that was exactly the kind of personality they had in mind. I know when we discussed the cold guy image in one of my previous videos, I mentioned how a male idol could have had this image because they were just naturally more quiet, or alternatively because the label gave it to them. This is kind of a very similar idea, except I do believe it's more of a combination of the two when it comes to the ice princess image, rather than a company just assigning the image to a female idol, if that makes sense. I don't believe any female idol was out there deciding she would be the ice princess because she knew she was both more reserved and very pretty. It's likely this role was one that she was given after labels spotted that's what fans were calling her behaviour. So now we have discussed who had this image and why, it is of course important for us to discuss the potential issues that arose with having this image as a K-pop idol. The first potential issue with this image is of course the preconceptions from fans of who this person is, judging their personalities or abilities. There is unfortunately a misconception amongst fans that some idols with a colder image are acting this way on purpose because they are rude or because they are untalented and don't have any stage presence. I shouldn't have to say this because it is a given, but I will anyway. Just because somebody may appear more quiet or reserved, this does not make them a rude person. And just because an idol may not appear to own the stage in the way other more outgoing members do, this does not mean that they are untalented or are any less able to perform as an idol than other members of the group. There has been a trope within various forms of media for the longest time about the talented singer or dancer who may just lack confidence on stage and gets a bit of stage fright, but they are actually a very talented singer or dancer. So how come whenever it comes to a K-pop idol, fans just immediately assume somebody who appears less confident while performing is untalented? Don't get me wrong, I understand that ability to perform is considered a crucial factor of being a K-pop idol nowadays, more on that later, but just because somebody acts more reserved on stage, this should in no way reflect on their talents or who they are as a person. We don't know them at all, and some people are just naturally more introverted, and that is absolutely okay. Another issue with the ice princess image is the potential potential insecurities an idol with this image may feel. So unlike the cool mysterious guy image, which refers to male idols with a cold and perhaps mysterious look, there is another layer to the ice princess image that goes beyond just having a seemingly cold personality. An ice princess is also admired for her elegance and beauty. We all know that K-pop idols are held to an extremely high standard as it is. Being a K-pop idol who is known for having literally royalty-like beauty is an insanely high standard that I literally couldn't imagine being held to at all times. You're not just known as pretty, you're known as so pretty and elegant you could practically be royalty. Idols will naturally have days where they might not feel their most confident, where they want to go to the airport barefaced with no makeup because their skin isn't looking the greatest and they've had a breakout and they want to give their skin a rest. But if you're known as the ice princess, you can't just simply do something like that without people commenting on the way you look, or if you slouch a bit more today because you're tired, they'll comment on the way you're carrying yourself a little bit differently. Another potential issue with being known as the ice princess could be typecasting, not just in the K-pop world but beyond. For those who don't know, the word typecasting actually comes to us from the world of acting, and this basically refers to the idea that some actors or actresses will get cast in very similar roles because of the way they look. The same can unfortunately apply across various forms of media, and K-pop is no exception. There's a lot of pressure on K-pop idols and groups to try and experiment with different kinds of sounds and images to keep up with trends. However, if you are the member of your group known for having a cold image and dressing the most elegant all the time, you're going to struggle when it comes to trying out new images or sounds because this is not what people expect from you. If you're the member who's usually quiet and reserved, you can't just suddenly change the way you act on variety shows because people will assume you're acting on purpose and start to question whether or not the way you act when you're more quiet is genuine or if what you're doing now is the act, that sort of thing. But at the same time, if an idol with this image always remains the same while the rest of their group appears to mix it up a bit more often with their appearance or vibe in different eras, then the ice princess will get accused of being stubborn, rude, or incapable of doing anything else and changing, which funnily enough takes us back to the first issue we discussed, where people question their personality and ability. It's almost as though it's a vicious cycle where the woman involved can simply never win because they're almost sort of being used as a puppet just to make those around them happy. Rather than them getting to be more quiet to protect their more introverted side, labels somehow find a way to utilize this to their advantage until it's no longer beneficial to them, which leads us perfectly into the next chapter of this video. I mentioned in today's video contents that we'll be discussing why this image appears to be sort of dying out a little in K-pop, so let me now elaborate further on what we mean by this. When I first got into K-pop in 3rd gen, it seemed to be standard practice that there were lots of different types of images and personas that idols may hold within their group, to sort of give each member a personality or character that we could use to remember them by. But as time has gone on, and I've been into K-pop longer and longer, I've noticed what appears to be a sort of decline in idols being known for having a specific image that was just their role within the group, as well as something of course like vocalist, rapper, dancer, etc. One prime example of this is the ice princess image, where aside from 4th gen idol aespa's Winter like we mentioned before, I really don't think we have seen a lot of idols with the ice princess image since when I got into K-pop and earlier. It is absolutely fascinating to me that there may be people watching this video who got into K-pop a little bit more recently and might not have heard of this image before, or some of the other ones we've discussed in the past, which is what motivates me to create these kinds of videos and share what I think I know. And I'm sure there could be different reasons why the K-pop industry feels like it doesn't need certain images or personas anymore, but for the sake of today's video, why exactly might the K-pop industry have moved on from the ice princess image specifically? I personally think this is mainly due to the fact that fans' wants and expectations have sort of changed as time has gone on and K-pop has become more global. Of course, with any genre, it's only natural that what the audience may want appears to change over time depending on what's the trend. But the K-pop industry seems to experience these changes much more frequently than any other genre of music perhaps would, because of how much it has grown over the last 10 years. And like every year is a new surprise. I have been into K-pop for 10 years now, and the amount of global fans around me has grown far beyond what I ever could have imagined. So when K-pop perhaps has more of a domestic audience, it made more sense to have this image because this is what the local audience wanted and looked at in admiration. However, now K-pop has grown so much globally, it makes sense that there are a lot more influential factors which companies have to look at to determine the kinds of images and personas they want their artists to portray and represent. I think in more recent years, there has been a much stronger desire from K-pop fans to see idols more like friends. Fans love when idols appear relatable and like somebody you could physically know in real life. Of course, if this is the case, then this is exactly the opposite of what the Ice Princess image represents, because that persona is literally about having an air of unapproachability and appearing like royalty, cold and untouchable. That would be the exact opposite to traits a fan may look for in somebody they want to get to know on a deeper level, because you can't get to know somebody who appears to have a wall up that you can't get past. However, another potential reason that we might be seeing a decline in the Ice Princess image that I also want to throw in there for your guys' consideration. You know I love hearing what you think, but could we also be seeing a decline in the Ice Princess image because fans are much more critical now of how an artist appears on stage? We briefly touched upon it earlier when I said that nowadays it seems that the ability to be a captivating performer on stage appears to be one of the most important factors that K-pop fans consider when looking at an artist's ability. With this in mind, the idea of having an inviting aura on stage and being an ice princess are total opposites. The two just simply do not go together. An ice princess would be known for having perhaps more blank facial expressions on stage to keep up their poised, controlled demeanor. But fans nowadays would look at this and assume this idol does not have many facial expressions on stage because they have no stage presence, and they would get criticized for this. So with that in mind, I think it would make sense for us to say that perhaps companies are now training their idols to appear more engaging and inviting on stage rather than having a standoffish image, because this would reflect poorly on how their ability to capture an audience is perceived. I don't know, this one's a bit up in the air for me. It kind of makes sense. Of course, idols will have always been critiqued in the past for the way they appear on stage. However, if labels have noticed that a global audience may want a more captivating look on stage, maybe this is why they've decided that the Ice Princess image isn't really suitable anymore. Time for a quick conclusion from me before we wrap up today's video. Honestly, I find it super fascinating that a term I used to hear thrown around all the time when I first got into K-pop just doesn't really appear to be used at all nowadays. It's like a piece of history that's somehow gone in the iceberg, pardon the pun. But at the same time, I think everything happens for a reason. And if the K-pop industry isn't using this term anymore, then perhaps it's because we simply have outgrown the need for it. In my opinion, idols are more than welcome to be more quiet if that's just who they are as a person. And a beautiful idol is a beautiful idol. We don't have to make up a fancy name for these things, because why? All this does is create an expectation and put a weird pressure on this idol to always live up to this nickname they were given, and I can't say that's really necessary. Some people will never be happy either way, whether they stick to the image or not. Come back to this video in like another 10 years time when we're in 6th or even 7th gen, because you never know what might have happened. We might have come full circle and we could be using this term often again, because fans have lost so much focus on stage presence and prefer artists who look cool and more edgy. Who knows? But I think for the current era that the K-pop industry seems to be in, the Ice Princess image might have officially melted away. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you remember when this image was more common? Do you think it's still alive and well? Or do you also believe it's time to let it go? Okay, I'm sorry. No more ice jokes, I promise it's time to go. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!